Now, so far we have learned, Bob, how we measure a current culture. We have also learned how one would go about defining optimal culture. Next, what? Now, obviously, we need to do something to get to optimal culture, which actually would be the enabler for your business growth. So, how do we get there?
Yes. Well, first of all, if you look at the literature, in the literature, change is very much emphasized. Not content of culture, but change. Right. I always say, if you are a captain on a cruiser, or a big ship anyway, yeah, and you are very good in navigation, but you don't know where you are, you don't know your bearings, and you don't know the bearings or where you want to go to, you will not arrive at your destination. How good you are in navigation. The same is true with change. You may be a very good change agent, but if you don't know where you are and where you want to go to, you cannot be very successful. You may be successful to a degree, but not very successful. So I have therefore made what I call integrated change tools. Yeah? That means that in these change tools, we take into consideration especially who you say you want to become. And if you know who you want to become, it becomes much easier than to make change happen into that proper direction. And I make a distinction here between indirect change and direct change. Yeah? Indirect change I defined as you change the environment in which people operate to such a degree that they would be stupid not to adjust. Direct change is where you tell people you have to change your behavior, for example. Now here I have to make a distinction between, for example, a country like the States and a country like India. In the States, direct change doesn't always work so well, because people's national cultural values are that they are pretty individualistic, and therefore they do their own thing. That's what they say. You do your own thing. Yeah? Whereas in India, if the big boss is acting as a benevolent but strict father figure, people are very much willing to do what the boss tells you to do. So therefore, in the case of India, it's much more important to know what's really happening at the shop floor. Whereas, because people have a tendency to tell their boss what they think the boss wants to hear. Now, that is somewhat changing in India, and it may change more and more rapidly because of the economic growth. And certainly in the industrial, urban areas, India seems to move a little bit into the direction of the French culture, not the American culture, the French culture, which means that then management becomes more tough to motivate your people in a proper way. I will not now say too much about it, although I also work in the field of national cultures. So you could say that when your people on average are highly in India, you may want to use a mix of direct change and indirect change. Direct change means that then top managers should understand better how to manage their people in such a way that they can identify directly with their direct boss, and if they do so, they are willing to work much harder than people in the Western world will ever be willing to do. That's also why you see that some third world countries jump ahead so much. Because if you're able to manage your people well, you do on average with your present national culture a better job than in the Western world. So ideally, with highly educated people, it's a combination of indirect and direct change. If people don't have a high level of education, you can just limit yourself to direct change.